The old you is disappearing. The new you is being born. Your body is changing. Your soul is getting stronger. You are no longer the old you. You are leaving behind all your weights, the chains that slow you down, the burden of the past. At this moment, a transformation is taking place deep within you. That old tired body, the fears, doubts, and defeats that limit you are disappearing one by one. Like fire rising from the ashes, the new you is rising. You are chosen. The traps set against you, the obstacles placed in front of you, can no longer stop you, because the divine power within you carries you further than you have ever been. Your old body, your old thoughts, your old limits are dying. The new you is born stronger, wiser, more invincible. Now your time has come. Leave behind the comments. Write 77. Let go of the old you. Let go of everything that makes you small. Because the path opened in front of you belongs only to the strong. You no longer exist to carry the burden of the past, but to walk to your new victories. What unfolds before you is not just triumph, but an overwhelming supremacy. The adversaries who once conspired against you now falter, their resistance fading into irrelevance. No force they wielded, no alliance they forged could withstand your unwavering momentum. They have exhausted every scheme, drained every resource, and yet they stand powerless before the undeniable reality. What once appeared to be a battle has become a complete dismantling of their foundation. The tides have not merely shifted, they have swallowed the very ground beneath their feet, leaving them stranded in their own undoing. Their last defenses crumble, their voices dissipate into nothingness, and their fate is sealed. Survey the present moment, and you will witness the collapse of those who once sought dominion over you. They stood tall in arrogance, believing their deceit would fortify them, yet now their own words betray them. The weight of their falsehoods has dragged them into an abyss of their own making. They spent their strength orchestrating your failure, yet it is their own walls that are disintegrating. The same energy they once used to rise is now the very force pulling them into obscurity. They are ghosts of their former selves, lost in the wreckage of their ambitions. They no longer strategize, they scramble, desperate to escape the relentless consequences of their own choices. The forces that govern balance have cast judgment, rejecting their very essence. The natural order has no room for the toxicity they spread, and so it expels them with absolute finality. Once they moved in shadows, believing themselves untouchable, but the light has stripped them bare. The whispers they used to manipulate others now echo back at them, hollow and meaningless. They once thrived in deception, but now the illusion is shattered, and they are left with nothing but the remnants of their own downfall. They vanish, not with the power they once exuded, but as remnants of failed schemes, mere fragments of a story that has reached its inevitable end. Every maneuver they orchestrated, every ploy they initiated, has rebounded upon them with merciless force. The intricate plots they devised have turned inward, ensnaring them in the very traps they set for others. The tools they sharpened for battle have dulled in their hands, rendering them defenseless. Every falsehood they spread returns to them, not as whispers, but as undeniable truths, exposing their intent. Their attempts to discredit you have only amplified your strength, fortifying your name while dissolving theirs. They spent years constructing a battlefield only to find themselves isolated within it, abandoned by the very forces they once commanded. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom. For you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. The strategies they once relied upon have turned against them. Their influence disintegrates with each passing moment, their carefully laid foundations crumbling with irreversible damage. The machinery of their control falters, systems once efficient now spiraling into chaos. What was once a calculated assault is now nothing but erratic desperation. Every calculated move has lost direction. Every well-placed strike has misfired. Their efforts, once synchronized, now descend into discord, their operations collapsing under the weight of internal fractures. The tactics they trusted have betrayed them, and they stand in disarray, unable to regain order. Their war of perception, their attempts to distort reality, has reached its breaking point. They can no longer feign innocence, nor manipulate the narrative. What was once a game of precision is now a spectacle of absurdity. The masks they wore, the illusions they conjured, have crumbled in broad daylight. The manipulations they once executed with subtlety now appear as clumsy and transparent as a poorly scripted performance. They strained to maintain control, yet in their desperation, they abandoned any semblance of reason. They no longer hide their malice. It spills from them uncontrollably, revealing the depths of their depravity for all to see. The desperation fueling their actions has exposed their core. They have stripped away the last remnants of their disguise, showing the world the truth of who they are. The false nobility they cloaked themselves in is tattered beyond repair. The more they try to hold on to power, the more it slips through their grasp, like sand through clenched fists. Every attempt to regain stability only amplifies their instability. The more they push, the faster they fall, ensnared by the very forces they sought to manipulate. What was once carefully orchestrated is now unraveling into chaos, and there is nothing left for them to salvage. The tide has shifted irreversibly, and what was once fierce resistance has devolved into sheer desperation. Their once calculated maneuvers have crumbled into erratic flailing, driven by the frantic realization that nothing they do can salvage their position. The weight of impending failure presses upon them, turning confidence into terror. Their voices, once laced with arrogance, now tremble with unease, cracking under the strain of maintaining a facade that has long since disintegrated. Their accusations grow wilder, their claims detached from reality, exposing not their target, but their own unraveling. They weave convoluted stories, trying to bend the narrative in their favor, yet every contradiction they spin only tightens the noose around them. With no strategy left to uphold, they resort to recklessness, scattering their dwindling resources in an attempt to cling to relevance. There is no calculation, no patience, no measured approach, only erratic thrashing against an outcome they can no longer control. Assets meant for long-term endurance are squandered in an instant. Allies, once deemed essential, discarded in a fit of blind panic. The foundation they painstakingly built is being sacrificed in a last-ditch effort to delay the inevitable. As internal turmoil erupts, fingers are pointed in every direction. Blame circulates among them like a wildfire, consuming what little trust remains. The once unified front fractures into isolated factions, each desperate to distance themselves from the wreckage. They anticipated a reaction, longed for an emotional response, waited for the moment their target would engage on their terms, but instead, they were met with something far more devastating: silence. Their entire playbook depended on provocation, yet their desperate calls go unanswered, leaving them grasping at shadows. Each attempt to inflict harm meets nothing but cold indifference, and the void, where they expected resistance, becomes an unbearable torment. The weight of their own tactics collapses onto them, crushing any illusion of control. What they failed to comprehend was that true strength was never about retaliation, but about unwavering steadiness in the face of adversity. They gathered like scavengers, waiting for the moment their target would falter, eager to feast upon weakness. But instead, the pressure they exerted became their own undoing. Their relentless pursuit drained them, eroding their foundations until there was nothing left to sustain them. While they fixated on destruction, their adversary focused on construction. As they expended every ounce of their energy tearing down, their opponent remained dedicated to growth. While they exhausted themselves in battle, the other side thrived, unwavering in purpose. They thought they were dictating the terms, but in the end, they merely accelerated their own collapse. Their deception was meticulous, their predictions spoken with certainty. But as reality unfolded, every claim they made shattered against the unyielding truth. The longer they held on to their fabricated narrative, the more glaringly obvious their failures became. The contrast between their proclamations and the undeniable facts widened into an unbridgeable abyss. Their frenzied declarations were met not with resistance, but with effortless clarity. While they shouted, their adversary remained composed. While they lashed out wildly, the response was measured and deliberate. Their hysteria only solidified the truth, exposing their unraveling for all to see. The realization dawns upon them, slowly at first, then with crushing finality. They are not facing an opponent in decline, but one who has only grown stronger. They sought to break what could not be broken. They believed resistance would erode their adversary's resolve, only to find that it refined it into something unshakable. What they mistook for vulnerability was the crucible in which resilience was forged. And as this truth settles, it delivers a devastating blow, stripping away any remaining illusion that they still hold power. The effort they exerted to diminish their opponent has instead made them indomitable, ensuring that there will be no recovery from this defeat. There is no regrouping, no comeback, no second chance. The unraveling is complete. Those who once stood at their side now flee, eager to disassociate themselves from impending ruin. What was once an empire of influence is now a deserted wasteland, abandoned even by those who once swore loyalty. There is no reclaiming lost credibility, no repairing what has been irreversibly broken. They have become relics of their own failure, their legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. The game they played so ruthlessly has consumed them, and all that remains is the silence of their own irrelevance. The balance of fate has never been more precise. Every act of malice they hurled now returns to them in full force, leaving no room for escape. The forces that govern equilibrium have carried out their verdict without hesitation, ensuring that what was sown in deception is now reaped in downfall. Every accusation they flung was merely a reflection of their own transgressions, their own dishonesty now laid bare. The burdens they sought to place upon others now weigh them down, pressing them into an abyss of their own making. The false narratives they once spread are now nothing but shattered echoes in a world that no longer listens. Their last move is not one of resistance, but retreat. Stripped of all illusion, they depart, not only from the battle, but from the very identity they once clung to. The grand performance they orchestrated, built on conviction and overconfidence, has met its inevitable conclusion. The effort they poured into erasing others has left them erased. The relentless pursuit of destruction has not resulted in dominance, but in their own depletion. Their momentum has ceased, and what remains is nothing but the crumbling of a foundation too weak to support the weight of its own corruption. The force they once projected outward has begun consuming them from within, reducing them to remnants of what they once claimed to be. The space they once occupied now actively rejects them, as if even existence itself refuses to house what has been tainted beyond repair. The collapse is not a spectacle, but a revelation. Those who once defended them, who once stood shoulder to shoulder in shared ambition, now scatter in every direction, eager to escape association. Their most trusted allies turn away, some in quiet disillusionment, others in open betrayal, desperate to distance themselves from an unraveling that can no longer be contained. The fabric of their influence, once tightly woven, has unraveled into threads too thin to hold any power. The very forces they relied upon for support now act as catalysts for their undoing. What was once considered impenetrable is now fragile, vulnerable, unsalvageable. It is not an external force that delivers the final strike, but a blow from within their own walls. Those who once swore loyalty are the same hands that now dismantle the last remnants of their crumbling empire. The secrets they kept hidden now spill forth, unrestrained and irreversible. Information they once guarded is now wielded as a weapon against them. The voices that once echoed their praises now whisper the details of their downfall. The audience they gathered for admiration has turned into a tribunal of reckoning. They are no longer leaders, no longer feared or revered. They are abandoned relics, testimonies of a misguided ambition that has reached its final breath. What they sought to build has disintegrated, not by opposition, but by the weight of its own contradictions. Their attempts to mask the truth, to construct an image that would last, have failed under the sheer magnitude of their own inconsistencies. What was once carefully structured has imploded, unable to sustain the illusion any longer. The force they worked so tirelessly to suppress has only grown stronger, while they themselves shrink into irrelevance. Their words no longer hold power. Their presence no longer commands attention. The crowd that once followed them now turns away, unimpressed, disinterested, and unwilling to partake in a failing charade. The tide of public perception, once manipulated in their favor, now moves against them with unstoppable force. What began as scattered doubts has become an overwhelming tide of disapproval. Those who once defended them now rush to declare their distance, eager to claim ignorance rather than association. Every past action is re-evaluated, every past word scrutinized, and with each revelation, their credibility withers. The unity they once boasted has fractured into 1,000 irreparable divisions. The movement they once led has become a burden too heavy for even its own members to carry. Their existence is no longer feared, no longer relevant. It is merely a memory, fading faster than they ever thought possible. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by his strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the Super Thank You button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. Their once powerful voice, amplified through endless platforms, is now drowned beneath the weight of undeniable reality. Every attempt to regain control, to reshape the narrative, only accelerates their decline. The stage they once ruled has become the site of their greatest humiliation. The very tools they use to rise have become the instruments of their collapse. They speak, but no one listens. They command, but no one follows. They reach for the influence they once wielded, only to grasp at nothing. Their descent is irreversible, their fall witnessed by all, their existence reduced to the consequence of their own choices. What was meant to weaken you has only made you untouchable. The battle they waged against you has become the forge in which your power was refined. Every attempt to diminish your presence has solidified your foundation. Every effort to bring you down has lifted you to new heights. While they crumble beneath the weight of their own actions, you walk forward, unwavering, unbothered, unstoppable. What they mistook for fragility was endurance beyond their comprehension. What they saw as vulnerability was simply a patience they failed to understand. You have not merely survived their onslaught, you have transcended it, standing at the threshold of something far greater than they ever imagined. The struggle they initiated has consumed them entirely, leaving behind nothing but chaos of their own making. While they spiral deeper into the disorder they birthed, you rise unshaken, evolving into a force they never anticipated. Their resistance, once meant to weaken you, has instead acted as the catalyst for your transformation. The obstacles they placed in your path have only sharpened your instincts, forging within you a strength that surpasses every previous limit. Every attempt to tarnish your name has only polished your legacy further. What was once questioned is now undeniable. Those who doubted have seen the undeniable proof. What was spoken against you was never truth, but the desperate fabrications of those who now find themselves without footing. The aftermath of this battle has illuminated distinctions that were once blurred. The false has been stripped away, leaving only the undeniable contrast between destruction and creation, authenticity and deception. The opposition that once sought to shake your foundations has instead refined them, making them indestructible. What was meant to cloud your vision has instead given it sharper focus, revealing the path ahead with unmistakable clarity. The very attempts to drown out your purpose have instead amplified it. In trying to erase you, they only made you impossible to ignore. They have reached the end of their capacity for resistance. Each tactic has failed. Each effort has been rendered meaningless. No adjustments, no reinforcements, no desperate recalibrations can salvage what has already collapsed. The resources they squandered in their futile campaign have run dry, their network of influence shattered by their own repeated failures. The very alliances they depended on have crumbled under the weight of internal blame and exhaustion. There is no longer even the will to fight. The fire that once fueled them has burned through everything, leaving nothing but embers too weak to reignite. What once burned with fury has extinguished itself, consumed by its own excess. The force that once seemed relentless has exhausted its own foundation, leaving behind nothing but hollow remnants of its former intensity. There is no triumphant retreat, no strategic withdrawal, only an unavoidable and absolute surrender. There is no deception in their defeat, no last attempt at misdirection. This is finality, not because it is declared, but because it is inescapable. They have not simply lost a battle, but their very grip on relevance itself. Like chaff in the wind when the harvest is done, they scatter, hoping the storm will forget them. But the season of reckoning has come, and the divine hands that separate wheat from waste do not hesitate. Some slink away into the shadows, vanishing like morning mist, thinking that if they are unseen, they will also be unremembered. But the weight of their choices clings to them, like a name written in stone. Others scramble to rewrite the story, fumbling with words, trying to convince the world and themselves that they were never truly against you, that their hearts were never aligned with deception. They rewrite their roles, attempting to erase their footprints in the dust, but destiny does not grant them such mercy. The truth has been spoken, the record set. Then there are those who still cling to remnants of pride, weaving shallow justifications, hoping to salvage a reputation that has long since turned to dust. They reach for an explanation that might redeem them, but the time for redemption has passed. There is no bargain to be made, no final argument to shift the outcome. The walls they built to control the truth have collapsed, and now they stand exposed, unable to deny the inevitable. And yet, none of it matters. Their voices, once loud with certainty, now hold no weight. Their actions, once carefully calculated, now serve only as monuments to their own undoing. It does not matter how they frame their exit, whether they disappear in silence or depart in protest, the conclusion remains the same. They did not just lose a fight, they lost their standing, their influence, their very place in the story. This is not a setback from which they will return, not a temporary retreat before a resurgence. No, this is the final chapter, the last line, the moment the curtain falls and the lights go dim. For they did not battle merely against you, they battled against a divine movement, against the call of something greater, against a tide that was never theirs to control. And in doing so, they ensured their own erasure. It was never about a contest of strength, never about strategy, never about their plots or their plans. It was always about the truth, and the truth does not yield. Now is the time to share God's blessings. By clicking the super thank you button on YouTube, you can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles. Feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed and let the light of the Lord guide your path. What follows is the resounding silence of a victory so absolute that it leaves no room for further opposition. No more whisper campaigns, no more elaborate schemes, no more empty threats. The noise that once polluted the air is gone, leaving behind a space where your voice can finally be heard without interference. This is not a temporary shift, not a fleeting moment of reprieve. This is the establishment of a new order, one in which your success is no longer up for debate. This victory is not bound to the present. It is the foundation of something far greater. The echoes of this moment will ripple through time, marking the point where everything changed. The historians will study it, the thinkers will analyze it, and those who follow will recognize it as the defining moment where illusion crumbled and truth took its rightful place. And now, every door that was once locked is open. Every path that was once blocked is cleared. The energy, once required for battle, is now free to be used for something greater. The limitations that once existed have been shattered, making way for boundless creation. Those who opposed you have faded into irrelevance, left behind by the very march of progress they sought to halt. They surrender, not because they choose to, but because no alternative remains. The curtain falls on their failed ambitions, and the stage is set for your next chapter. This is not just triumph, it is the unfolding of destiny. Not just the end of their reign, but the true beginning of yours.